Hi, if you want to watch exclusive content with hot girls that you won't watch on YouTube, namely where Naruto roasts Kushina and Mikoto and many other hot girls without restrictions, then visit my Boosty channel at the link in the description.
Naruto POV. Today was a beautiful day. Cloudless, piercingly blue sky. Some say it looks like my eyes. I think it looks like my father's eyes most of all. I only managed to see him a couple of times. The first time we met, I almost became a fox, and he was a clod of chakra, sealed in a seal. But even then, he said he was proud of me. The second time, we met on the battlefield. It was the Fourth Shinobi World War. He appeared at the right moment, and when it was all over, he ruffled my hair and said that he loved me, and disappeared. After all, he was just a corpse, resurrected by Sasuke's technique. But even for those short minutes, I was immensely grateful. After all, I love you too, father. End of POV. Naruto was lying on the roof of the Kazekage residence in the Sand Village. He had a week off, which he decided to spend away from his native village. Now, basking in the rays of the warm sun, he was resting his soul. Constant missions throughout the year did not contribute to relaxation. So that Naruto did not drive himself ahead of time, Sai, as his loyal assistant and deputy as the head of the two previously united services, Umbu and Root, sent him on vacation. And Naruto was only happy, although there was a lot of work. Contemplating? Gaara's approach was accompanied by the rustling of sand. Naruto turned his head in his direction and, smiling, invited him to join. Gaara did not refuse. After all, the Kazekage should have a day off. Remembered my father. Gaara was one of the few people Naruto trusted unconditionally. I see. What do you plan to do next? Gaara asked this question with undisguised curiosity. The life of this seemingly restless blonde was always filled with adventures, and Gaara did not want to miss anything. To relax. And if you're for it, then to fuck. You're so worked up. Gaara wasn't embarrassed by his friend's words. They didn't advertise it, but they didn't hide the fact that they had been intimate for 2 years. There was no talk of love. They were loyal friends, support, and practically brothers to each other, but that didn't make sex any less magical. Well, yeah. I'd like to see you if you spent 2 months in forced celibacy. Naruto winced in annoyance. I was hated and despised as a child, then elevated to a hero, and now they almost consider me a god. And gods aren't supposed to have a personal life, it seems. So it turns out that I can only fuck with you or during solo missions to distant lands. Do you have something against me? Gaara threw up his hands, pretending to frown. Let's go to bed. I'll prove to you how much I'm against it. Naruto knew his way around the Sand Village, as he had often dropped in, so he reached Gaara's house without any problems. Naruto eagerly opened the door and pulled the Kazekage in behind him, closing the door with his foot. They were already kissing wildly and tearing off their clothes. Each knew what the other wanted, so giving each other pleasure was no problem. 4 hours later, wet and covered in sperm from head to toe, they lay on the bed, chatting relaxedly. You know, now I believe that you had a 2-month abstinence. He didn't have the strength to speak loudly, and his voice was torn by incessant moans, so Gaara whispered barely audibly. But for Naruto, this was not a problem. After merging with the fox, excellent hearing was a pleasant bonus. Besides, Gaara was lying on his chest. So someone didn't believe me? Naruto's vocal cords were just as hoarse, so it came out as something between a croak and a hiss. I already repented, especially my ass. By the way, my butt also hurts. But your regeneration is faster than mine. Oh yeah, sure, an hour difference, that's a lot. Naruto rolled his eyes, which looked pretty comical when he was lying down. What if there's an urgent meeting? It's your vacation and you can afford to relax. You have a very difficult diplomatic mission, please the excited Jinchuriki, so you can't relax at all. Gaara only laughed at this, and Naruto supported him. So they lay there for a couple more hours, until they completely restored the energy they had spent and regenerated the small abrasions and hickeys left during sex. Naru, I found an interesting technique in my father's scrolls a long time ago. I don't know if it will help you in any way, but take a look. Gaara held out a rather large scroll. Naruto, looking at Gaara in surprise, took it. The title read, Another Reality. And what kind of technique is this? He asked after reading. This is one of the ancient techniques of my family. Only I can perform it. Without going into details, when I use it on someone, I transfer that person to a parallel reality. The transferred person retains his memory and all the skills he has developed, but he cannot tell anyone about it except for representatives of my family. I can also transfer myself across realities. However, this requires a large amount of chakra. Due to the fact that I am a Jinchuriki, the accumulation process is much faster, and I was not deprived of it to begin with. And what are you getting at? Naruto, contrary to the opinion of many, was not a fool, and immediately understood what Gaara was hinting at, or rather speaking in plain text. And now he was asking rather about the reasons that prompted him to tell him. I think you deserve to be happy. And here, you will always be looked at as a savior. Besides, here, you even behave as others expect, without showing how smart and versatile you are. And you yourself said that you lack sex. So I recently found a good world for you. Of course, it is not without its problems, but in my opinion, with your experience, you are no longer afraid of anything. Yeah, like a drop in the bucket for an elephant. As far as I understand, I'll take the place of that Naruto who lives there, and what, he'll show up here? Not exactly, but you are right about one thing, you will take the place of another you. Gaara was silent for a moment before continuing. But the local Naruto will not take your place, you will disappear from memories, as if you never existed. I, as the sender, will remember your existence. If I had clanmates, they would also know about your existence. Then what will happen to that other Naruto? Now the blonde was more concerned about the moral and ethical aspect than ever before. He will have to die. As soon as this happens, I will switch your places. No one will notice the substitution, of course, if at that moment, a representative of the clan no Sabaku is not present. And also, in the world where I want to send you, your parents are alive, and there is a brother. However, as I already said, there are some complications there. I'll go to the lake, find me in an hour. I'll give you my answer. But nothing will happen to this world while I'm in the other one? You know, as for me, you've already exceeded the quota for saving him. And who lived before you? It's possible that you're right. Naruto went to the lake. It was located under the village of the hidden sand. Outsiders were not told about it as an object of strategic importance. But Naruto was an exception. Gaara personally showed it to him. It was a perfect place to make a decision. After an hour, Gaara, as Naruto asked, came to him. Leaving his clothes on the shore, he swam to Naruto lying on his back. I could never swim on my back. It always seemed like someone was going to attack me from under the water. Come here. Naruto, grabbing the Kazekage under his head and holding him by the waist, laid Gaara on his back on the water. Is it easier? Yes. Gaara didn't rush Naruto, knowing that he would say everything himself as soon as he finally decided everything. If I go there, will I have the opportunity to return? Yes, but not earlier than in 2 months. And I will even be able to return you at the same moment I sent you. Then no one will notice. Let's try it. If we don't like it, we'll just have a long vacation. Just try not to look for additional troubles for yourself. You already had more than enough of them. Okay. Naruto suddenly let go of Gaara and he went under the water with his head. That's it. Now take it. They began to splash around like little children. Although neither of them would admit it out loud, they were both excited about what they were about to do. Naruto stood in the center of the seal drawn on the sandy floor. Some tension was present in the room. Gaara tensely folded the seals, putting in a simply enormous amount of chakra. Naruto was worried that something would happen to him. Finally, the last seal was folded and Gaara looked into the eyes of Naruto, who began to dissolve into thin air. There, your last name is Namikaze. He shouted before Naruto finally left this world. At that very second, a flash rolled over all the villages. It illuminated everyone, taking away all the memories of the man named Uzumaki Naruto. At the same time, a similar flash illuminated the cave that had just collapsed, but no one noticed. Namikaze Minato, who had brought his family to the mountains to spend a few days in peace and quiet, was completely unconscious. His youngest son, Namake's Naruto, was left under the rubble. Kushina clutched her heart in horror. Even Menma, who treated his younger brother with coolness and disdain, jumped up. They rushed to clear the rubble with one accord, forgetting all their techniques in horror. However, adrenaline gave them strength and speed. Soon their son's body appeared. Naruto POV. I appeared in a very dark place. More precisely, I was buried under rocks. If it weren't for the merger with Kurama that I went through 6 months ago, a funeral service would have been held for me. As it was, I had a few fractures and my legs were slightly crushed, but nothing, a couple of hours and I'll be fine. Especially if I use the Sannin mode. Then I heard that someone was digging me out, or rather they wanted to dig up the local Naruto, but it only turned out to be me. From the conversation, it became clear that these were my parents and brother. For me, as a person who had no family, this meeting caused a certain, one might even say superstitious horror. Finally, a ray of light appeared. End of POV. Minato grabbed his son and pulled him out from under the rubble. Kushina immediately began to examine him, wailing like a hen. Still, she was afraid for her child. Menma stepped aside, pretending not to care at all. Only Naruto could hear how fast his heart was beating. The others' pulses were also off the charts. Why are you so careless? Kushina's heavy fist hit Naruto right on the top of his head. It's not surprising that I don't have such a concept as caution. Since birth they hit me on the head without holding back their strength. Naruto looked at Kushina with disdain. He had already recovered enough and was now standing a little to the side, looking at his family. What are you saying, Naruto? Your mother and I love you very much. Minato joined the conversation. However, this does not cancel out the injuries inflicted. Naru walked to the nearest tree and settled down in its shade, comfortably resting his feet on the protruding roots. The blood flow was almost restored, but there was a general weakness caused by the transition between worlds and the chakra spent on healing. Now Naruto was thinking about what he had said to Kushina. He couldn't perceive her as a mother, and Minato wasn't a father to him either. His parents had died giving their lives for him, and no one could replace them, especially now that he was an adult, an experienced fighter who had gone through the war with an established worldview. But what he was sensitive about were children. Naruto was disgusted by the very thought of hitting a child. And the fact that an adult kunoichi, who was also the Jinchuriki of the nine-tailed fox, could hit her son, who had just fallen under rubble, without controlling her own strength. It was simply outrageous. Naruto continued to lie on the ground, not paying attention to Kushina's lamentations, which Minato was trying to calm down. In Konoha, he had trained himself to ignore other people's screams. After all, his eardrums weren't state-owned, even if they did recover quickly. Sasuke just rolled his eyes, saying that now he understood what it was like for him as a child. Naruto sincerely sympathized with him. Minato approached his relaxed son. He had long since come to terms with the fact that his second son did not want to be a shinobi. But this did not diminish his love for him in the least. Both his children were dear to him. Now, knowing that Naruto was not hurt, Minato was very happy. He did not consider this rescue anything other than a miracle. And what he said to his mother, you can blurt out such things out of shock, although, in some ways, he was undoubtedly right. Naruto, sunshine, we decided that it would be best to return home now. Can you walk on your own? Minato sat down next to his son. Menma was already helping Kushina pack her things. Naruto lazily opened one eye and looked at Minato. The man was very handsome. Medium-length golden hair. Bright blue eyes, they really were like the sky on a clear sunny day. Chiseled cheekbones, light, pearl-colored skin, pink, beautifully outlined lips, and neat nose. He looked about 25 years old, but according to Naruto's rough estimates, his exact age was approximately 37. Time flows differently for shinobi and ordinary people, and the lifespan of a shinobi increases by 2, and if he has large enough reserves of chakra, then even 3 times. And now, Naruto saw a clear example of this. But because of the restless life, many do not live to 40 years, let alone more. You're looking at me so closely, is something wrong? Minato felt uneasy under his son's scrutinizing gaze. He had never looked like that before. The sun was shining on your back, Naruto stood up and took a few steps towards the path they were about to descend. He finished without turning around. "You look like an angel." "And what do you mean by that?" Minato whispered in shock when Naruto had already moved a decent distance away. "As you wish," Naruto shouted at him. Minato flinched. He couldn't even imagine that anyone would hear him. The return journey took about 4 hours. Naruto carried a light travel backpack. He could have taken something heavier. However, he decided that he would carry what he was given. After all, was he on vacation or not? He would have time to strain himself. Who knows what kind of troubles, as Gaara said, there will be here. Ten-tailed beast forbid, Madara might come for their mortal souls. During the entire journey, no one said a word. Kushina was still sulking at Naruto's words. Menma ignored him with a phlegmatic expression. Now he reminded Naruto of Sasuke, while he was running around with his obsession about revenge. But Naruto would not be Naruto if he dwelled on one problem for a long time. Minato thought about the words his son had said. It seemed like nothing special, but they worried him, or rather, excited him. In front of the entrance to the village, Naruto settled down behind the family. He did not know where their house was and did not want to turn into the wrong alley. Naruto POV. At home, I restored my parents' house right after the war and lived there. It looks like it was located in the same place here too. When we approached the house, no, not that. The little house, my eyes widened. I was glad that I was walking behind the others. Since it would have been quite difficult to hide such surprise, with my lively facial expressions. The huge 3-story mansion was located not far from the Hokage's residence. It had a decent amount of land attached to it, on which I managed to notice beds with withered stalks. It looks like Kushina doesn't bother herself with a vegetable garden. And why did she breed it? I don't understand women, especially some of them. Naruto. Are you going to stand there for long? Kushina's voice brought me out of my thoughts. I'm already on my way. I entered the house. Quite a nice place. Simple and tasteful. You could immediately feel the hand of a woman here. If the apartment that the village gave me was dirty and untidy, then in my new house I kept everything clean and tidy. However, when you entered, you could immediately understand that I lived alone. And here there were some trinkets, napkins, paintings everywhere. I also noticed that there were a lot of flowers in the house. Greenery in general. I quickly found the room belonging to my double. There was a nameplate nailed to the door. I pushed it and went inside. Wow, it was so gloomy, even I didn't have it. End of POV. Faded wallpaper, with a faded pattern in places, a bed and a desk covered with paper. That's it. There was nothing else. Naruto even felt a little sick. How must one live, to live like that in such a house and with such parents, who, as he already understood, loved him? Repair. I urgently need repair. Naruto flew out of the room. From the accumulation of chakra, he realized that the whole family was in the kitchen. Got money? He yelled from the doorway. Menma, who was drinking tea at the time, spilled the hot liquid on himself. Kushina began jumping around him, trying to help him get rid of his clothes and examine the place where the water had gotten. Why do you need it? Minato asked, ignoring the chaos that had ensued. Naruto didn't like such questions. Since childhood, he had been used to managing his own money, and now their absence was causing discomfort. I'm going to do some repairs. I'm sick of this miserable grayness. Naruto answered with indifference on his face. Minato's eyebrow twitched with interest. His behavior was completely uncharacteristic of his son, but without a doubt, it was him. On the way to Konoha, he had already checked whether his appearance was an enemy technique. In my room, in the nightstand. You can take as much as you need. I'm going to the residence now, should I wait for you? As you wish. Naruto, not paying attention to the surprised faces of those present, rushed into his father's room. And why do you have a separate room? Naruto whispered as he went up to the 3rd floor. It was from there that the remnants of Minato's chakra wafted the most. Having counted out a decent amount with an eye on the future, Naruto went downstairs. His father was waiting for him at the door. Having said goodbye, they left the house. Naru? Why did you suddenly decide to do some renovations? We offered to do it so many times, and you said it was a waste. Minato looked curious. He really was interested. After Naruto was pulled out from under the rubble, he began to behave a little differently. His gaze became confident, his posture proud, and his gait swift and light. Kushina noticed this, and Menma did not pay any attention to his brother. Minato was upset about this. He wanted his family to live in peace. The stone was heavy, the impact put his brains back into place. What else could Naruto say? Sorry, but your son died under the rubble. And I, at the instigation of my lover, went to be an experimenter. I'm extending my vacation to Tsunade for an examination. That's the least they can do to him. Okay, I'll take it as a given. Do you know where the store is? Of course. Naruto looked at Minato in surprise. Sorry. It's just that you leave your room so rarely that sometimes it seems to me that you might get lost. You're imagining it. Naruto said confidently and turned at the crossroads and headed straight to the hardware store. Naruto POV. A few meters later, I noticed that an assigned Ambu was following me. It seems that Minato wasn't joking when he said that he was afraid that I might get lost. What a surprise. And when he said that my prototype didn't leave the room. What made him do that? Well, I don't believe that my double could ruin his life so ineptly. I'll have to check the room for hiding places. I even noticed a couple of places. Let's hope that our thoughts are similar. End of POV. Having chosen cheerfully colored wallpaper, grabbed a couple of packs of glue, a spatula, and a bucket, Naruto went home. But apparently he was not destined to get home calmly today. The way was blocked by cabinet-like guys. Naruto politely tried to go around them, but they surrounded the blonde. And what do people like you need from the beautiful me? Just look. This blonde can even talk. And if someone doesn't shut up, they'll have nothing to sneer at. Naruto hasn't kept silent in response to insults for a long time now. Life has taught him that if you want to get a good life, you have to fight. And he fought as best he could, but he fought. And until recently, he succeeded. Give me the money. You jerk. The brute swung his arm to hit Naruto, but the Ambu who appeared grabbed his arm by the shoulder and twisted it behind his back. Oh, you hippopotamus burp. You need to think about who you're attacking. Naruto bowed gratefully to the Ambu and calmly walked past. The rest of the thugs ran away as soon as their leader was caught. Naruto didn't care about the fate of the suicide, let him be glad that his hands were busy. Arriving home, he went to his room without delay. Having spent 6 hours, he and his clone brought the room to a divine appearance. Only small details remained, but they could be corrected later. Now, the walls were decorated with blue wallpaper diluted with a pattern of white lilies. They framed the edges like a ligature. Silvery tendrils shimmered in the light. Having washed the room from dirt, Naruto decided to repaint the ceiling dark gray for tomorrow. Today he had enough. He rearranged the furniture a little differently. Now there was a table by the window, on which various notes lay. Naruto decided to look through them right after he ate. He moved the bed to the wall opposite the window. Thus, so that the one opening the door would not see it upon entering. The wardrobe with things migrated to the bed. Having found a low table in the closet, he moved it to the center of the room. Having decided to buy a carpet and soft pillows tomorrow, he went to do an inventory of things. It was necessary to take a shower and change clothes. There weren't many things, most of them were standard models and all gray, mouse-colored. Having made a mental note to update his wardrobe, Naruto grabbed a change of clothes and went to the bathroom. Everyone in this house had a separate bathroom, so there was no problem with someone coming in. And even if they did? What's wrong with that? After quickly rinsing himself off, he went out into the hallway. Kushina was cooking something. The smell of burnt meat spread throughout the house. Naruto winced and went down to the kitchen. As he had expected, Kushina was flying around the kitchen like a meteor, trying to fix what she had done. Naruto shook his head and put out the fire under the pan. "Don't panic," he shouted at his mother. She even stopped in surprise. She watched her son's confident, graceful movements with increasing amazement. Naruto quickly mixed the dough and poured it onto a baking sheet. He added the half-cooked meat and vegetables, sprinkled them generously with cheese and shoved them into the oven to bake. "When did you learn to cook?" Kushina wasn't just surprised, she was shocked. "If you're hungry, you won't dance like that." Naruto answered her and left the kitchen. He learned to cook as soon as he had money. Ramen from a noodle shop is one thing, but a packaged semi-finished product is something else entirely. Only Sasuke and Gaara knew about this ability of his. Naruto didn't cook for anyone else. In the evening, when the father returned from work and Menma disappeared into thin air, the whole family gathered at the common table. It was obvious that Minato and Menma were trying hard to pretend that they were waiting for Kushina's culinary delights. When she put a baking tray with a casserole on the table, the men looked at each other in surprise and carefully put a piece for themselves. Naruto had been eating for a long time, not paying attention to them. Menma, as Naruto understood, was 2 years older than him. He had red hair, like his mother's, which fell to his shoulders. At home, he did not tie it in a ponytail and it beautifully framed his face. If you did not look closely, it became clear that he and Naruto were very similar. Only his eyes, shimmering with silver and looking with contempt, spoiled his appearance. Although, as Naruto remembered, most girls were glued to such. In addition, he had slightly narrower lips and darker skin, like Kushina. If Naruto was graceful and his muscles were not immediately recognizable, then Menma was the complete opposite. In addition, the shapeless clothes that Naruto was wearing gave him subtlety. Previously, when there was not enough money, he had no time for clothes. Then constant training did not contribute to having a large wardrobe. So he had to make do with one flashy-looking jumpsuit. But durable and quick-drying. "Naruto, can you hear me?" "What?" Naruto was distracted from his thoughts. "I'm saying that tomorrow we've been invited to visit the family of the Uchiha clan leader." Minato repeated patiently. Naruto coughed when he heard who had invited them to visit. Gaara had forgotten to warn him about that. "I want you to live up to it. Just you wait, you sand devil." Naruto hissed from under the table. Then he straightened up and asked louder. "And how am I supposed to match that?" He emphasized the last word with a special intonation. "Kushina will buy you a festive kimono in the morning." "I'll buy it myself. I need to go to the store anyway." "What's the reason for the party?" "Itachi's birthday." "Oh, how?" Naruto didn't say anything else. He thanked her for the treat and went to his room. Out of the corner of his ear, he heard Minato praising Kushina's cooking. When she said that it was Naruto's doing, a double scream was heard. Without listening to the rest of the chatter, Naruto fell asleep. Today was an incredibly long day for him. Or to be more precise, 2 days had already passed, because he had lived in his world for a whole day. The morning came unacceptably early. As was his habit over the years of training, Naruto woke up at 5 in the morning. After doing a set of exercises, washing and dressing, he went down to the kitchen. After checking the house for chakra, Naruto found out that everyone was sleeping in their own rooms. He was still interested in why his father was sleeping separately. Deciding to take a closer look, Naruto began to brew coffee. Sasuke had taught him this recipe. While he was gone with Orochimaru, he had learned much more. After bringing it to a boil, but not waiting for a cap to form, Naruto took the aromatic drink off the fire. Footsteps were heard on the stairs. "Good morning. I didn't expect you to wake up so early." Minato yawned into his fist, trying to wake up. He was dressed only in his home pants, which were barely held up by his hip bones. "I don't like living up to someone's expectations." "Why did you leave so early?" Naruto poured coffee into 2 mugs. Minato nodded in gratitude and, taking a sip, smiled blissfully. "I have to go to work now. It's not proper for the Hokage to arrive later than his deputies," Minato said instructively. "So it's better to sleep on the job?" "It would be better to shorten the form for filling out reports. People return from missions, and instead of resting, they have to fill out at least 3 sheets. And what's the point of you looking through them all? Your deputies could do the distribution and the checking of missions below rank C, otherwise they're only good at wagging their tongues." Naruto reasoned between sips. Again, take the elders, for example. All they do is chatter, and they're of no real help. So let them deal with rank B. They have enough experience, and they'll take the load off you. Minato's face grew longer and longer. Not from what he heard, although that was part of it, but rather from the way it was said. Naruto didn't take his eyes off his cup, his speech was calm and confident. He knew what he was talking about. In his world, he and Sasuke had done the same. There had been so much noise, especially from the elders. Naruto smiled at the memory. Minato, who was watching Naruto's expression closely, noticed this smile. It was gentle and affectionate, the first time he had seen such a smile on his son. Usually, he either bared his teeth wide open or didn't smile at all. He wondered why he was smiling like that. "Isn't it time for you to go?" Naruto looked Minato in the eyes. "No. That is, yes. I ran. The coffee was delicious and the dinner too." "Then you can tell me where you learned to do that." Minato, jumping over the steps, went up to the 3rd floor. Quickly putting on his uniform and cloak, he jumped out of the window onto the street and, taking on a dignified appearance, slowly moved towards the residence. Naruto washed the dishes and was about to leave when Menma appeared in the passage. He, like Naruto, was already collected. Not a trace of sleep remained on his face. "Hello." Naruto smiled kindly. Menma gave him a contemptuous look. Naruto was surprised by such a reaction. No, he certainly noticed that Menma was ignoring him, but he wanted to know the reason for such behavior. What did he do to deserve such treatment? "What did I do to you?" Naruto wasn't afraid to ask straight out. Sometimes this kind of behavior caused an open reaction, but not always. "You did nothing. Someone like you is not worthy of being the son of the 4th Hokage." Menma said all this through tightly clenched teeth. The resulting hiss could have been the envy of Orochimaru in his prime. "So it turns out that only you are worthy? And by the way, don't hiss, we are not in a snake pit. To tell me something like that, you must have twice as many teeth. What cute rabbits there are these days. When you find the real reason for your dissatisfaction with me, you are welcome to a psychoanalysis session. We will help as much as we can." Having given a jester's bow, Naruto left his dumbfounded brother standing in the kitchen passage, and went up to his room. He needed money to buy paint and things. Remembering that he would need a kimono today, he took a little more. In the near future, he needed to beg for a mission. He was not going to take money from his parents again. Suddenly they would ask for a report later. Naruto planned to go shopping in an hour. Then he needed to check his secret training spot. He hoped that it wouldn't be occupied here either. Having found his favorite shop, he went inside. Although it was early, it was open 24 hours, and suddenly there were guests from another country or an urgent mission. The saleswoman noticed the customer and immediately approached him. Recognizing him as the Hokage's son, she began to make eyes at him. Perhaps the local Naruto would have fallen for it, but in the year since the war, he had seen so many of them that they had become disgusting. Having named his sizes and said what he wanted, Naruto went into the fitting room. The saleswoman, whose name was Yuki, was already carrying a couple of sets. Naruto settled on tight black low-rise pants made of matte fabric, a black t-shirt and a black sweatshirt, along the bottom of which was a pattern of tongues of flame. He bought another sweatshirt, this time blue. It was a little thicker than the black one, although he was not sick, but you never know what can cling to you on a new turn. Having taken a few more black t-shirts and the same pants, only gray, he paid and left in new clothes. He did not wear underwear, so he did not buy any. There's no point in spending money on unnecessary clothes. The shop where he was going to buy a kimono was in another part of the village. He had only spent 15 minutes in the previous one, so he decided to take his time and take in the general situation. Not everyone recognized him in his new clothes, so it was easier to walk. The girls and some of the guys followed him with appraising glances. On the way he met the local Ino. She was selling flowers and was one of the first to appreciate Naruto's new appearance. He didn't find any significant differences between this girl and that one. Both blondes, both from the Yamanaka clan, both selling flowers in their free time. He didn't know her well enough to draw more detailed conclusions. Choosing a festive kimono took longer than he expected, but he was satisfied with the purchase. All that was left was to bring everything home and then he could go to training. Kushina wasn't in the mansion. Naruto shrugged indifferently and headed to the secret training ground. He didn't want to lose his form during the time he spent here. Although that was hardly possible. Naruto POV. As I expected, my favorite training spot was unoccupied. I had thrown the umbu off the trail with my clone, so I wasn't worried that anyone would find me there. Having set up a chakra-absorbing barrier, I created about 1,000 shadow copies and began practicing taijutsu. After spending about 2 hours on this, I dispelled the remaining ones and, entering Sannin mode, created new ones. After merging with the fox, my vision, hearing, and sense of smell became sharper. Now I really was no different from an animal. My pupil now had an elongated, cat-like shape, so I had to constantly maintain hinge. But the chakra channels in my eyes began to pump up. Now I couldn't succumb to simple genjutsu. Of course, this wouldn't work with the Sharingan, but it also became much easier to throw it off. Regular training at the limit of what was possible with Sasuke helped a lot. We both don't know when to stop, so until we fall down without strength, the sparring would not end. There were no people willing to interfere. At first, people were afraid that the war had started again, but then it was okay, they got used to it. But the landscape changed every week. That was a joy for the kids. After the relationship between me and the fox improved, I created a new inner world. Now he lived in a huge meadow, where the weather reflected the real one. Sometimes he got angry about it, but generally he didn't mind it much. He was also tired of the monotony that had been there before. At the end of the training, I looked in on him. This red mitten was asleep and didn't give a damn. I shook him by jumping on his head. At first he grumbled, but when he found out that I was in a parallel world, he knocked this head on the ground. With each blow, he managed to moan about what an irresponsible owner he had. Having calmed down the collar, I returned to the training ground. There was just enough time to take a shower and change clothes. When I was ready, Minato and Kushina were already waiting downstairs. Menma was supposed to come straight to the place of celebration. Kushina was wearing red silk clothes with embroidered camellias on the sleeves and hem. The belt was a rich yellow color. Her hair was beautifully styled, and not sticking out in different directions, giving her a charming look. In general, she was quite a beautiful woman. Minato put on a black satin kimono. There were tongues of fire along the hem, which rose higher and encircled the waist, passing to the collar. Her hair, not held back by a protector, fell to her shoulders, and at the back, some strands reached her shoulder blades. My exit was accompanied by oohs and ahs from Kushina. I liked my reflection too. The dark blue kimono, which turned into a soft blue shade towards the bottom, with a dragon embroidered on it in silver thread, cost me a pretty penny. But it was worth it. The satin fabric shimmered beautifully in the light and emphasized every line of my figure. Thanks to constant training, I could boast of developed muscles in my arms and legs, six-pack abs and, as I was not the only one who thought, a gorgeous ass. I didn't put on underwear on principle. I combed my hair back so it wouldn't get in the way, with only a few short strands falling on my face. I managed to notice the look Minato gave me. I think I understand why he and Kushina live in separate rooms. After all, it wouldn't be difficult for a trained medic to perform in vitro fertilization. I learned such details when I started receiving offers to become the father of children from some girls. After appraisingly tracing the figure of my so-called father with my eyes, I came to the conclusion that I really liked everything. This interest was confirmed by my tense member. I turned away from Minato's back, who was walking in front of me, and inhaled several times. Now was not the time for that. I didn't even have a gift. Besides, I had no idea how to behave with Itachi. I didn't know him from my world, and my double had no idea what kind of relationship he had with him. Well, I'll have to act according to the circumstances. I've been in worse scrapes. End of POV. Naruto, Minato, and Kushina entered the Uchiha clan territory. They were met by a man with the clan symbol on his clothes. He was sent by the leader so that the guests would not get lost. Kushina and Minato had never been here before, so they looked around with curiosity. Naruto was not impressed at all. After the war ended, Sasuke returned to the village. The two of them restored the Uchiha quarter using old plans they found in the library. The brunette did not want anyone else to interfere with the construction, so he rejected any help. Thanks to the clones, the construction was almost finished before it began. Because of this, Naruto could not look at these paper houses. He only recognized wooden walls, so it would be warm in the rain and snow. The house was quiet, Naruto had assumed so. The majority of people had already congratulated the birthday boy, and now the official part was beginning, which was more like a political meeting in an informal setting than a celebration. Sasuke talked about several of them. The memories did not evoke joyful emotions, rather sadness and a desire to know what it could have been like if he had been a simple child, and not the youngest son of the head of the most influential clan in the village. Entering the meeting place, Naruto saw that all of Konoha's ruling elite had gathered there. Elders, clan heads, some daimyo, and Tsunade and Jiraiya were also present. Naruto just chuckled. It looked like he was going to have some fun. Well, Itachi wouldn't soon forget his birthday. Menma was already here and was sitting next to Itachi. He threw a displeased look at Naruto, who entered and continued the conversation. "Someone thinks that I don't belong here," Naruto said quietly. Minato smiled encouragingly at him. He knew that his youngest son wasn't particularly respected by those present here, but he hoped that everything would work out. They were adults after all. "Everything will be fine, sunshine, don't worry." Naruto looked at his father in surprise. "What makes you think I'm worried?" "Believe me, they should be worried. They'll never forget this day." Naruto stretched his lips into a predatory grin. Minato suppressed the desire to take a step back from such a son. Watching the blonde walk away, Minato admitted that such a Naruto worried him, and it made him nervous. 2 hours had passed since the beginning of the celebration. Fugaku-sama was negotiating with those present. Itachi was practically not participating in the conversation. Minato, as Hokage, simply could not help but participate. Sasuke was sitting to the side of the common table with an expression of complete disdain. No one poured Tsunade a drink. She sat down and now occasionally flashed her eyes in the direction of the bottle of sake. Jiraiya had already left, citing urgent research. Naruto only giggled. Everyone wished him luck with such seriousness, if only they knew what kind of research it was. Minato blushed. He was well aware of his teacher's preferences. While no one was looking, Naruto stole a couple of bottles of sake, hiding them under the hem of his kimono. Carefully, dashing, so as not to be noticed ahead of time, he reached Tsunade. "Good evening, Granny Tsunade." The woman looked at him, about to be indignant at such an address, but stopped when Naruto took out a hidden bottle. "I think it's too quiet here for a birthday. Maybe we can change that?" He took out a second bottle. Tsunade's eyes lit up with anticipation. They sat so that the bottles of sake standing nearby could not be seen. One of them was half empty. Tsunade was already a little tipsy. Naruto was glad that he was immune to alcohol. The fox's chakra completely removed all the toxins. For him, sake was just ordinary water. "It seems that you are already giving up your positions, and Granny? After all, they say the truth, old age is no joy." "How dare you? You brat!" Tsunade roared, getting the attention of everyone in the room. "Am I not right?" Naruto's eyes were burning with a roguish fire. "You are already 50, and you still pretend to be a girl." Those present gasped in fear. Minato turned white with fear. He remembered how Tsunade beat the crap out of Jiraiya. Kushina clutched her heart. Even Danzo was moved. Trying not to be seen by anyone, he sat to the side. As it turned out, the entire older generation followed his example. "Now take your words back. Minato. Prepare yourself for the fact that today the number of your children will decrease. Do you have enough strength? What if you get radiculitis or gout?" Naruto widened his eyes in mock horror. The woman couldn't stand this. "Let's go outside. I'll show you how to treat your elders." She admits that she's an old woman, and she's still unhappy about something. Naruto continued to provoke her. However, he stood up and followed the woman. Passing Itachi, he whispered, "Look to the right. This is my gift to you." Itachi looked where Naruto pointed. His eyes widened. and his always calm face expressed a whole range of emotions: disbelief, surprise, and a little joy, which he tried to hide. And there was something to look at. The daimyo were hiding behind the backs of the elders and his pale father. The always unperturbed father, now he looked like a frightened boy. This was the best gift he had ever received. Laughing sincerely, which scared everyone even more, Itachi followed the couple. "Granny, are you sure?" Naruto stood in the courtyard of the Uchiha clan leader's house. Tsunade stood opposite. Nothing indicated that she had drunk half a bottle of sake. They were not alone for long. Itachi came out after them after 2 minutes. Then the others showed up. Minato was supported on both sides by Kushina and Menma. He was whiter than snow, even his blue eyes were now dull and looked faded. "Naruto, you do understand that you are behaving unworthily, right?" It seemed as if Tsunade was trying to protect the blonde. "And this is being told to me by a woman who has debts all over the world." Naruto even threw up his hands. "Oh, you." Tsunade concentrated her chakra in her fist and rushed at the blonde standing in front of her. Namake's Naruto most likely couldn't even see this movement, but Naruto Uzumaki learned from the best. After all, he even overtook the Raikage. And he was lightning himself. Shifting his left leg back, Naruto let the approaching Tsunade pass him. Not expecting this from the blonde, the woman took a few more steps forward and only then stopped. Naruto continued to look at her with a smile descending on his lips. Kushina nudged her husband in the side so that he finally stopped squinting. It was not proper for the Hokage to show her fear, although she herself did not understand what was going on here. Frowning, Tsunade made a second attempt. This time she was more serious. Minato watched Naruto with wide eyes. His movements were smooth and graceful. They were a bit lazy, so it seemed like a cat was fighting Tsunade. Not even that, it was a tiger. Beautiful and very dangerous. Naruto eluded the woman's attacks with the grace and experience of a true warrior. No one understood where, and most importantly when, he learned to do this. "Minato, did you know that your son is so strong?" Danzo appeared behind the older blonde, like a jack-in-the-box. Kushina and Menma flinched and let him go. Fortunately, he was already able to stand on his own. "It's embarrassing to admit, but I didn't even perceive him as a warrior." Minato was embarrassed. "Not just you," Menma said quietly. Naruto was already tired of dodging. Tsunade was trying hard to hit him, but she couldn't. The woman was getting more and more heated. Unexpectedly for everyone, Naruto stopped. "It's time to end this. Have you decided to give up?" Tsunade stretched her lips into a triumphant smile. "No. I just don't like running." Naruto crossed his fingers at chest level. "What are you?" The eyes of those present widened. "Shadow clone technique," Naruto said with icy calm. 2 clones appeared near his right hand. Tsunade jumped to the side. She had no idea what the blonde would do next. Naruto began to form Rasen Shuriken. The people present forgot how to breathe. None of them had ever seen anything like this, but they all understood that if this hit Tsunade, there would be no small casualties. "You don't think you can hit me with that, kid? I won't let you anywhere near me. Don't underestimate me." Naruto smiled and threw a cloud of deadly chakra. A friendly cry came from all sides. Those present did not expect this. The technique hit the target. The entire courtyard was filled with a bright flash of light. You could feel the ground shaking under the feet of those present. When everything calmed down and the dust settled on the ground, everyone present saw a huge crater. At the bottom lay a half-dead guy. Naruto towered over him. "Now, would you be so kind as to tell me where the real Tsunade is?" Naruto's tone did not bode well. The guy swallowed in fear. The others waited tensely for an answer, because none of them noticed the substitution. She said that it only needed to be replaced, that no one would notice anything. It was pitiful to look at the guy. It seemed that he was ready to faint. His frightened gaze darted from one man to another. Naruto laughed a pure, sincere laugh. Everyone looked at him in confusion. "I recognize the old lady," he said through tears. "It looks like she didn't want to see your faces so much that she put the poor boy down. How did you even manage to do this? Where was Shizune?" fainted. Naruto became more serious after these words. She can lose consciousness only in one case. Was he that great? The blonde spoke with reverent awe. Those present looked at him in surprise. The boy looked at him sympathetically, then nodded in agreement. I suspect that the main commandments for ninjas occurred precisely because of the sins of this restless one. So how many this time? She got so carried away that, in general, the boy was busy for a second. She lost herself. The deathly silence that reigned after these words was not broken by anyone for the next 5 minutes. Many were diligently thinking about what to do now. Naruto turned around and walked towards the exit from the block. "Where are you going?" they called after him. Naruto's next phrase shocked everyone. "To the sex shop." Minato's eyes threatened to pop out of their sockets. Kushina blushed. Menma simply couldn't believe that he was hearing something like that from the lips of his proper brother. Why? Itachi decided to clarify the reasons that prompted him to go there. "Do you want me to describe it to you in detail?" Naruto continued after waiting for Itachi to look away. "Well, since you insist. I want to buy a 9-tailed whip, then pull Tsunade out of the ass she got into and spank her well. She wanted some thrills in her old age, she'll get them." Naruto's look did not bode well. Temptation. Naruto POV. Having changed into the clothes I bought this morning, I went down to the kitchen. I couldn't eat at the Uchiha house, and I should replenish my supplies before leaving. When I was examining the contents of the refrigerator, Minato came into the kitchen. He silently looked at me. I didn't bother him, he'll ask or tell me if he wants. He's not a little boy. "Sunshine, when did you learn this, and what kind of technique was it anyway?" I emerged from the depths of the refrigeration giant for a second. Minato felt tense, he was not sure what I would answer. And I, an open-minded person, only not everyone here knows yet. I learned it 2 years ago. And the technique, you already understood it yourself. Added wind chakra to the Rasengan. And when did you manage to do it? It took me 3 years to learn how to do it, and how long did it take you? If you take into account all the time spent, then 3 months, but the last stage in a week. Incredible, you're just incredible. Minato crossed the distance between us and hugged me tightly. I tensed up at first, I wasn't used to someone touching me just like that, usually it was followed by an attempt at murder or hostage-taking. Kid, relax, I'm very proud of you. I wonder how much you'll hate me when you find out I'm not your son, but just a visitor from another reality. I freed myself from the ring of strong arms and unrolled the sealing scroll. Putting a mountain of food on it, I reproduced a series of seals and packed the food. This should last me a long time. Although the boy told me where the old lady was last, I seriously doubt that she will stay in one place for long. End of POV. Naru, are you really going to go alone? The older blonde looked at the younger one with concern. Yes, and I don't advise you to stand in my way. Naruto looked at Minato, there was not a hint of fun or mischief in his blue eyes. I wanted to ask for company. Do you mind? It's been a while since I've been outside the village. Minato tried to seem carefree, he didn't want Naruto to think that he was patronizing him. I won't wait. Naruto walked past Minato, who was frozen in thought. Now, Uzumaki absolutely did not want to bow and scrape in front of his imaginary father. Although Tsunade could take care of herself, he was too worried about the one who had become like a grandmother to him. Even if she was just a copy of her, but to allow something to happen to her? Never. Half an hour later he was ready to go. Minato was standing in front of the exit. He, like Naruto, had packed everything into one small scroll and now the two blondes were moving lightly. Kushina and Menma were still in the Uchiha quarter, so there was no one who could impose themselves as a travel companion. When they had gone a decent distance, Naruto, who had been silent until then, asked a question. Is it okay that you left the village? You are Hokage after all. I have excellent deputies, and the elders are always so eager for power, so let them drown in this waste paper. Minato said vindicatively. His eyes sparkled with triumph. The blonde could not hold back and laughed loudly, a ringing and melodic laugh. Minato, as if spellbound, watched Naruto, who was walking slightly ahead. Not noticing that the next branch was a little higher, he stumbled. Naruto reacted in time and pulled the falling Minato to himself. He buried his nose in his chest and grabbed his waist. Naruto pressed his father tightly to himself. He felt how Minato's heart went out of rhythm for a second. "Are you okay?" Naruto asked, nuzzling Minato's head. Warm breath passed over the tip of his ear and Minato shuddered slightly. He quickly pulled away, looking guiltily at Naruto and said, "Yes, thank you." Minato quickly continued to move forward. Naruto narrowed his eyes and looked at his back. Thanks to his keen sense of smell, he could feel how excited Minato was when Naruto hugged him. He did not perceive him as his father, so he did not feel any remorse about wanting to sleep with him. Deciding that the opportunity would still present itself, Naruto moved after Minato, who had gone ahead. Minato's POV. What the hell is wrong with me? I practically got it up for my own son. Oh my god. I get it up for my son. What's wrong with me? I haven't noticed this reaction in myself before. That's right. It happened after he was knocked over. I nearly died of horror then, thinking that I would never see my sunshine again. And now, when he pressed me to himself, I nearly melted into a puddle at his feet. I'm just a terrible father. I can't think like that about my own son. It seems that my long abstinence has clouded my mind. But damn, how beautiful he is. I haven't noticed it before, but he's simply perfect. How graceful he was when he fought with the fake boy. And now, watching him, I see his proud posture, confident gait, and I feel a sense of incredible strength emanating from him. It seems that I'm starting to go crazy. The only thing I don't need is to fall in love with my own son. If he finds out about this, he'll curse me. If he doesn't kill me right away, because for everyone, Kushina and I are the perfect couple. What will he think when he finds out that our entire marriage is just a good cover? End of POV. Having stopped for the night at the hotel, Naruto and Minato began to settle into their room. For convenience, they took one for two with 2 beds. Devils were raging in Naruto's mind. Kurama only rolled his eyes and covered himself with his tails. No, he would never understand people. Especially one blondie. Naruto told Minato to go to the shower first, making both beds. The younger blonde was making devious plans to seduce the other blonde. When Minato got out of the shower, Naruto grabbed a towel and went to rinse off. Minato was lying on the bed, but his thoughts kept returning to the naked Naruto. Over the past 5 years, the Hokage had never seen his son naked or even half naked. He couldn't imagine what his son looked like, and from this he only wanted to know, and then he wanted to touch him even more. Quietly growling in annoyance at himself for such thoughts, Minato leaned back on the pillow. At the same time, the noise of pouring water stopped and Naruto came out of the bathroom. A white towel was tied around his hips, which shaded his honey-colored skin. With one hand, Naruto dried his hair with a small towel. A few drops of water ran down his beautifully pumped-up chest and abs, soaking into the towel. Naruto walked to his bed and bent over. Minato watched his son's actions without taking his eyes off him. The light reflected from his still slightly damp back, slender, moderately pumped-up legs. Naruto leaned one of them on the bed and reached for his clothes. At the same time, he arched his back slightly, exposing his toned buttocks, tightly covered with a towel. Minato almost salivated at the sight. None of his lovers had ever been so beautiful and arousing. Now, looking at Naruto, he realized that a little more and he would simply break down, ruining his son's life. Naruto, as if hearing his thoughts, straightened up, abruptly tearing off the towel. He bent down and began to put on his swimming trunks. Minato sobbed at the sight and, gathering the rest of his will into a fist, ran out of the room. He no longer heard Naruto say that this was only the beginning. Returning half an hour later, Minato was met with Naruto's crystal clear and incomprehensible gaze. "Where did you go?" The question was asked with such an innocent look that the very thought that he wanted to fuck his own son made Minato blush. "Get some air, let's go to bed, it's late." Minato lay down on his bed, turning away to the wall. Naruto shrugged and lay down on his own. Namikaze couldn't fall asleep remembering Naruto's body. He couldn't even imagine that his son would be so beautiful. A real treasure was hidden under the gray, oversized rags. Swallowing, he turned to face Naruto. He was sleeping sprawled out on the bed. The blanket was partially crumpled and revealed his torso. The beam of a street lamp illuminated the path of light hair starting just below his navel. Suppressing a groan, the Hokage turned to the wall trying to get the image of Naruto moaning under him out of his head. 2 hours later, he still hadn't fallen asleep. Suddenly, the blonde stirred on the bed and stood up and walked over to the table where the carafe of water stood. His eyes were closed and his movements were slow and imprecise. Minato realized that he hadn't woken up completely and was acting on autopilot. After taking a few sips, Naruto turned toward the bed and took a few steps when he tripped over the rug. The body reacted itself and he turned around 180 degrees so as not to fall. Having come to his senses a little, he continued walking towards the bed without opening his eyes. Minato panicked. Naruto was steadily approaching him. Before he could say anything, the blonde had already climbed onto the bed and wrapped himself in a blanket, pressing himself against Minato, putting one leg between his thighs. He lightly rubbed Minato's erect member with it, trying to get comfortable. From which the older blonde moaned softly through his bitten palm. Spitting on all moral standards, he pulled Naruto closer to himself and buried his nose in his thick hair. At that moment, Naruto thought that a great actor lived inside him. Relaxedly burying his face in the older man's chest, he finally fell asleep. Minato had no idea that all this time Naruto had been diligently implementing his plan to seduce him. Morning. In the morning, Minato woke up from the fact that he began to lack oxygen. Slightly moving the sleeping Naruto to the side, he sighed with relief. During the night, his son completely climbed on top of him, examining the features of his calm from sleep face. Minato realized that he fell in love. This thought settled on his heart like a stone. Trying not to disturb the sleeping one, Namikaze tried to get out, but Naruto pressed himself even tighter to him, entwining his limbs. A little cautiously, Minato ran his hand through his son's hair. It was much softer than his own. Sorting through the strands, he did not notice how Naruto woke up. "Good morning," he greeted his father, who had frozen in place in an instant, with a voice hoarse from sleep. His blue eyes were still clouded with sleep. Smiling affectionately, he rubbed his cheek against Minato's wrist and sat up in bed, not taking his eyes off his father. "Hello. I never thought you were sleepwalking at night." Minato decided to send his conscience to sleep. He was ready to do anything to see such a homely and affectionate Naruto next to him in the morning. He still remembered the warmth of his son's body and the softness of his hair, and his smell carried all thoughts away. Feeling that he was starting to get excited, Minato moved a little to the side and pulled the blanket higher, trying to hide his interest. "That's it. I was surprised when I woke up on top of you." Naruto didn't miss how Minato clutched the blanket at these words. He had already felt his arousal and became aroused himself. The sky blue color of his eyes changed to dark blue. Minato watched him as if enchanted. "You're such a fool, number 4. Naruto, with a movement that was unnoticeable to the eye, straddled Minato's hips and sank his lips into a kiss. Surprised, he opened his mouth slightly and Naruto began to flirt with his tongue. It didn't take long for Minato to respond to the kiss almost immediately. Pressing Naruto even closer to himself, he felt undeniable proof that his son wanted him. Sliding one hand between Minato's bodies, he stroked Naruto's cock. His actions were rewarded with a drawn-out moan. "Wait, that's not right." Minato tried to move away from the heated body, but Naruto with unexpected force pinned him to the bed, hanging over him. "Just don't lecture him." There was a growling note in the younger blonde's voice. The general excitement and aching balls did not contribute to calming down. "Don't pretend that you don't want this." Naruto was sitting on Minato's hips, so when he spoke he rubbed himself against his erect member. Minato slightly arched, trying to strengthen the contact, but then bit his lip, hoping that this would help him come to his senses at least a little. "You are my son." Naruto, hearing these words, sadly stretched his lips into a smile. "You're not entirely right, so trust me, it won't be incest and I'm not going to hurt anyone." The boy looked at Minato pleadingly. His blue eyes in their normal state now seemed like bottomless blue abysses with flames splashing at the bottom. The fourth looked at them, enchanted, sadly realizing that he could not resist them. Pulling his son to himself, he bit into his lips with a kiss. They kissed with all the passion they were capable of now. Naruto had already gotten rid of his swimming trunks and was now pressing his dripping member against his stomach. Minato followed his example and got rid of the rest of his clothes. For a second, tearing himself away from such attractive lips, he looked into his son's eyes. "Are you sure? The first time can be quite painful." He had no doubt that Naruto was a virgin, but he decided to give him one last chance to refuse. The deep laughter that rang out was a surprise to him. "I'm not a child anymore." Naruto raised his devilish eyes to him. Looking into them, no sane person would have any doubts that the guy standing before them was incredibly experienced. "I can be not only a passive, but also an active." Naruto whispered the last word in Minato's ear, lightly licking it, and then biting it sharply. Lightly sucking on the lobe, he felt a shudder run through the older man's body. "When did you manage to do that?" Minato let out a crumpled breath when Naruto's hand began to gently stroke his rather large dignity. Suddenly the grip tightened and a sharp movement of the clenched fist made the man groan loudly. Naruto smiled with satisfaction and, without waiting for him to continue, took the member into his mouth to the very base. The sob that came from above incredibly teased and excited the tense nerves. To prevent the man from coming prematurely, Naruto pinched the base with his fingers and continued the slow torture. "Naruto." Minato moaned his name breathlessly and thrust his hips upward, begging for more. Naruto released the pulsating flesh with a loud squelching sound. Now. Arching like a cat, he inserted 2 fingers into himself and began to stretch the ring of muscles, preparing for the invasion. At the same time, he did not let go of Minato's member, continuing to teasingly lick the head, lightly stroking the shaft with his thumb. Minato's eyes turned almost black as he watched Naruto prepare himself. There was a mirror on the opposite wall, so he had a full view. Unable to take it anymore, he pulled the unresisting boy onto himself and replaced his fingers with his own. The groan Naruto let out at that robbed him of the last of his composure. He spread his son's thighs wider and in one smooth motion, he plunged all the way inside. They groaned in unison, with each movement Minato hit Naruto's bundle of nerves and Naruto moaned out loud without holding back. Minato kept up with him. This could not continue for long and now they were lying next to each other relaxed. Naruto peacefully ran his finger over the Hokage's beautiful chest, and the fourth relaxedly stroked his back. Surprisingly, he now had no doubts that this was wrong or unnatural. He felt happy and, strangely enough, whole, lying next to his son. Minato at this moment was ready not only to move mountains, but also to lay the whole world at the feet of this incredible child. Sighing peacefully, he pulled the relaxed Naruto closer to himself and, inhaling the scent of his hair, pulled away. Seeing the worried look and the crease at the lips of such a young guy, Minato hastened to dispel all his doubts. "I don't regret anything and if you want, we will continue, of course with all precautions." He touched the corner of Naruto's lips with a light kiss. "I don't want to." Minato froze upon hearing these words. Unexpectedly for himself, he felt that it was very painful for him to hear these words. He didn't want to disappoint Naruto, but he wouldn't force him either. That would be too low for him. Naruto noticed his suddenly dim gaze and felt satisfaction. Now he had no doubts left. "I don't want to continue." He approached the fourth's face, gently grabbed it with his palms and forced him to look at him. "I demand it." Wide open eyes served as his answer. "Oh, you little parasite. My heart almost burst, and he's having fun." With a lightning-fast movement, he pulled his son's relaxed body towards himself and, laying him across his knees, gave him a light slap on the bottom. Naruto slightly raised his buttocks, as if inviting. "Do you want to play, my lord?" His voice was filled with a bewitching softness and was full of seduction. Groaning, Minato pulled this impudent boy to himself and kissed him. "We need to go. You wanted to find Tsunade, and if you keep fidgeting like that, we won't get out of this room. Let's go take a shower. Let's combine business with pleasure." Naruto licked Minato's lower lip and bit it lightly at the end. Sliding off the man's lap, he walked towards the bathroom, slightly swaying his hips. The fourth one smiled and followed him. Nakaka. It had been about 2 weeks since their first encounter. Naruto and Minato were hurrying towards the land of snow. According to the old man who owned the hotel they had stayed in the previous night, Tsunade had been seen heading that way with 4 men. Whenever possible, Minato and Naruto stayed in inconspicuous hotels, which allowed them to avoid meeting acquaintances. Although Naruto didn't care about public opinion, he wasn't going to ruin the life of the 4th Hokage. "Naru, let's make a stop here, then we'll need to cross the bridge and the exclusion zone, and we've been on our feet for 7 hours already." "Okay, then let's sleep, there was no time for that last night." "I wonder who is to blame for this?" Minato asked, raising his eyes to the sky philosophically. "Are you saying that you didn't like it?" Naruto slightly arched his back, exposing his tanned stomach, and ran the tip of his tongue along his lower lip. Glancing from under his eyelashes at the man who was watching him with fascination, he turned over to his other side. "If that's the case, then I'll sleep." Shaking his head, the man erected a barrier around the parking lot and settled down next to the restless blonde, pressing him tighter so that he wouldn't break free. It wouldn't hurt to sleep after all. In about a day they would catch up with Tsunade and then they would have to return to the village, and it would be more difficult to meet there. Saddened by such thoughts, Minato fell into a restless sleep. Naruto at this time was counting the time left until the end of his stay in this dimension. He had absolutely no idea what to do, but now, basking in the ring of such reliable hands, he did not want to think at all. Pressing himself even closer, he sighed peacefully and relaxed and fell asleep. He did not think about possible opponents, all instincts were now sharpened and if necessary, he would react immediately. 4 hours later, fully recovered, they set off after Tsunade. Without encountering any obstacles on their way, they passed the bridge dividing the borders and entered the exclusion zone. Trying not to make too much noise, they moved towards the mountains. It was beyond the pass that the village of Snow was located. By the end of the day they were already halfway across the pass. Using the fox's skills, Naruto sniffed and discerned the right scent in the jumble of smells. Naruto staggered in surprise and sneezed. "What a granny," he muttered quietly under his breath. "What?" Minato looked at his grumbling son. With his lips pouting at that moment, he looked incredibly seductive. It seemed so, Naruto answered with a slight smile, not really saying that he could still feel the lethal dose of fumes coming from that place. "We'll catch up with her by morning, though something tells me that we're in for a surprise." "Do you feel it with your tailbone?" Minato hugged Naruto to himself. He leaned his head back on his shoulder and watched the sunset with slightly closed eyes. "Beautiful." The older man whispered quietly, at a moment like this he didn't want to think about anything. Only to feel a strong and so pliable body in his arms. "Let's go. We don't have much time." Naruto started to go down first. Minato took one last look at the setting sun and followed him. A few hours later they were at the edge of a small village. There were brothels or pleasure houses on almost every corner. Towards the center they became more expensive and prestigious. Naruto winced when a half-naked girl ran out of yet another brothel. "I don't think Tsunade can be in a third-rate establishment, let's go closer to the center. There we'll start combing everything with a fine comb." Minato only nodded in agreement. He didn't doubt his son's words and he thought so himself. "Damn. How much longer? I'm sick of hanging around these dens." Naruto literally started to go wild. His pupil became elongated, his fangs lengthened a little and sharpened. The only good thing was that it was night now, so it wouldn't be noticeable. He couldn't use his sense of smell, since the concentration of women's perfume alone was off the charts. Even Minato, who didn't have such a keen sense of smell, winced. Naruto POV. I was already starting to lose control. The smells were driving me crazy. My sensitive nose was burning. Looking at Minato, I saw that he wasn't thrilled about what was happening either. The only good thing was that we had practically searched the entire middle section. Now all that was left were the prestigious gambling houses. I'd bet anything that she had once again spent several million that she had swindled out of or borrowed from a not entirely honest organization. I was so fed up. A quiet growl escaped my lips. Minato just looked at me but didn't say anything. That's right, smart boy. I could bite my head off right now. The main thing was that no one would get the idea to tease me. Of course. Why not? 3 insane men were heading straight for us. How many suicides for my soul? My hissing surpassed even Orochimaru in his best years. Probably from the way I said it, or maybe there was something in the expression on my face. You think I bared my teeth and licked my lips. Come here. Where are you retreating to? I began to slowly advance towards them. Naru. I was suddenly distracted by my lover's voice. I turned around sharply and growled at him. The man's eyes widened in surprise, and he took a few steps back from me. This sobered me up, and the veil of rage that was about to overtake me fell from my eyes. Sorry. Did I scare you too much? The 3 idiots had already disappeared into the nearest alley, taking advantage of my distraction. Minato just shook his head. It's okay. Let's go, we need to find Tsunade. He headed first to one of the gambling establishments. I looked down at the ground. My eyes stung unpleasantly. I felt like he was lying to me, and the taste of fear was sour and disgusting in my mouth. I could feel it coming in waves from my beloved man. As I set off after him, I simultaneously received messages from a dozen of my clones. Unbeknownst to Minato, I had sent them at the beginning of our inspection. Now I could say for sure that the old lady was not in most of the city. That meant we only had the center and a few more houses to inspect. They were lucky as drowned men. Tsunade was found in the 13th establishment. To say that she was drunk is to say nothing. In his world, Naruto had never seen her like this. Perhaps because there was no restraining factor in the form of Shizuna. Granny! It's time to go home. I shouted this practically in her ear. Who are you? Go away, don't you see how good I feel? She pushed me away. At the moment, I wasn't in the best mood. Roughly grabbing her hand, I pulled her off the table and dragged her to the exit, ignoring her attempts to resist. Minato followed us. He didn't try to interfere, which angered me even more. I felt his discontent as if it were my own. Here's another downside to empathy. Granny. I hope you've come to your senses enough to answer my questions. She spat out the icy water I dipped her in several times. It was lucky there was a barrel nearby. Otherwise she'd have to bathe in a puddle, which was water anyway. Yes, and now puppy, try to explain yourself. I feel how proportionally as she gains sobriety, her strength increases and her mood worsens. To avoid getting into trouble, I decided to shift all the blame. All questions to him. I pointed my finger at the 4th one standing next to me and, sticking my tongue out at him, disappeared from their field of vision. The last thing I remembered before this were huge, perfectly shaped eyes. End of POV. Solution. Naruto POV. It must have been about an hour and a half before Minato showed up at the room we'd rented. He looked like hell. I was at a loss for words. I didn't expect such agility from the old lady. There was a bruise turning blue on the 4th Hokage's cheekbone. Let's say it was from his ear to his chin. And that was just a slap. He limped on his right leg and painfully rubbed his left side. Granny has gone completely wild. By the way, will she return to the village? I took out the first aid kit and was now unscrewing the cap from the hydrogen peroxide. You left me there. Minato pouted his lips in an offended manner. Or rather, he tried to. The pain in his cheekbone did not allow his lips to stretch into a familiar smile. Instead, a painful grimace appeared. You are the Hokage, and I am small and fluffy. Be patient a little. I wiped my split lip with a cotton swab soaked in hydrogen peroxide. Watching the white foam forming in the corner of his lip, I bit my own slightly. I had an unbearable desire to kiss him at that very moment. He must have seen it in my eyes, because he reached out to me, but another painful grimace brought me out of my stupor. I helped him undress. A bruise was forming under his ribs. After carefully feeling and making sure there were no broken ribs, I applied a layer of ointment and a tight bandage. When he was asleep, I would heal him with my chakra, and by morning he would be as good as new. The leg wasn't as bad as it seemed at first glance. There were no fractures, and if there was a crack, my chakra would handle it. End of POV. I prescribe you complete rest. And no overexertion. Naruto's eyes sparkled slyly. He sat down and, picking up the confused man in his arms, went towards the bed. What are you talking about? Naru,